Welcome to Paranormal or Reality. If you love spine-chilling ghost stories, eerie urban legends, and tales that send shivers down your spine, you've come to the right place. In today's video, we're diving into real-life ghost encounters. These are the kinds of stories that will keep you up at night. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a tale of the unexplained. Now, dim the lights, grab your favorite blanket, and get ready for a journey into the paranormal world. If you dare. Let's begin. The beginning. My paranormal experiences started when I was roughly 6 years old. My first experience was very unexpected, since at this point in life I didn't really know about the paranormal or spirits. One evening, I was watching TV by myself in the living room while my parents were napping. As I was watching, I suddenly felt a chill on the back of my neck, followed by what felt like someone pushing a firm single finger straight down into the top of my shoulder. As that happened simultaneously, I heard someone whisper, "Hello," behind my right ear. At that, I sprinted into my parents' room telling them I heard someone whisper in my ear and that someone was in the house. They brushed me off and didn't check for me. To this day, I wonder if this event somehow opened me up to the years of events that followed. Closet encounter. After this incident, unexplainable things started to happen in my house. My stepdad liked to scare me from time to time, and he would hide in my closet before bed and poke at my feet to scare me. One night before bed, I checked my closet and closed it, knowing nobody was in there. Not long after I laid down, I could hear the door to my closet sliding opening. When I looked at the dark crack in the closet, I saw red eyes staring back at me. I ran, flicked the lights on, and opened the door, thinking my stepdad was in there trying to scare me again. But nobody was in there, and those eyes were gone too. The eyes in the bathroom vent. Another experience I would have frequently involved the bathroom. When I took a bath, I would always see the same red eyes from the closet in the vent above the bathtub, just watching me. It made me extremely uncomfortable, and I spent most of my bath time throwing a wet cloth at the vent. Usually, whenever I hit it dead on, the eyes would disappear. Until the next time I had a bath, that is. The first apparition. One night, my older brother and I were hanging out, playing games. He asked me to go upstairs to grab him a cup of ice cubes. He liked to eat them. As I was walking up the staircase, I looked up towards the railing that overlooked the downstairs. Standing there, leaning onto the wooden railings, was a figure dressed in a long, heavy-looking hooded robe. Its face was shrouded in blackness, and I couldn't see any defining features. I don't know why, but I continued walking up the stairs, but I noticed that as I moved, this entity stopped leaning on the railing and began mimicking my movements in reverse. Every step I took up, it would take one step backward toward the kitchen. When I reached the top of the stairs, the figure had made it to the doorway of our kitchen, where it stood. It glanced in my direction and vanished right before my eyes. The second apparition. I saw this figure one more time while I lived at this property. I was upstairs on the computer playing World of Warcraft, which had just recently been released. As I was playing, I started to hear cracking sounds, like someone cracking their knuckles. I thought I was alone in the house at the time, so it struck me as odd. I got up and opened the door to the hallway leading to the same staircase and kitchen area. When I opened the door, the figure was standing at the end of the hall. It wasn't looking at me though, but I could hear the cracking sound again. Realizing that it was coming from this entity, I slammed the door shut and locked it. About 10 seconds after shutting the door, I heard a strange sound that I can't even describe. It was followed by what sounded like the door being pushed hard, like as if a big gust of wind had hit it. To this day, I have no idea who or what that was, why it was there, or if it was trying to connect with me. I also wonder if this entity might be the same one with the red eyes I had seen previously. Was it getting closer to me? The babysitter. This next part I was unsure about leaving in, but since I'm describing my weird upbringing, I might as well. I'm not sure if this person contributed to the weirdness I experienced, but she definitely pushed my brother and me to seek answers on our own, as you'll see here. My babysitter, I'm going to omit her name, was someone who had connections to our family. Her sister worked on our farm and had her own horses stabled there, so her mother often came along. After a while of her being around, she ended up becoming our sitter. Not long after she started sitting for us, she told us that she was a witch. She showed us really old Polaroid photos of her and two other people performing some kind of ritual with symbols carved into a table they sat at. She also showed us things she could do, like moving objects around without being touched. For a long time, I thought this was just a fun story and tricks, but one day, I went inside from playing in the garage and made my way upstairs, where she was preparing dinner. She was unaware I was nearby. I witnessed one of our knives on the counter slide about 2 feet across straight into her hands, and she just continued cutting as if nothing abnormal had just happened. She never saw that I noticed, and I never brought it up. But what that sparked in me was curiosity, and because of that, I started researching black magic. After looking around online with my brother, we stumbled onto some websites that gave directions on how to perform black magic rituals, and so we attempted it ourselves. We went outside, drew a pentagram with fallen leaves, placed a statue in the middle, and began to read off the ritual words we had written down. It was at this moment that our sitter looked outside, saw what we were doing, and ran out screaming at us to stop. She started kicking the leaves everywhere and taking the statue we had placed. She scolded us, saying we had no idea what we were playing with, and to never do something like that again. Not long after, she stopped sitting for us, and sadly, she passed away not too long after that. While this part wasn't necessarily paranormal, I think the context is needed to understand how my upbringing was, and how these events may have created a domino effect for more to come. One thing was for sure, my sitter had an interest in the occult. My last experience at this property was more tame but still creepy. I was getting ready for school in the morning, and as I went to grab the hair comb, it just flicked off the counter and hit the wall behind me. I know it didn't just fall. Note: this brings us to the end of the first house before we moved to rural BC near Lone Butte. I would like to note that these experiences so far are just the ones I could easily remember. They don't include the noises I would hear, voices saying my name when nobody was home, shadows of people in my peripherals, and the feelings of being watched or sometimes touched. The story I'm about to tell is not one I personally experienced, but one told to me by my father, who experienced it firsthand many years ago. He went on a hunting trip one autumn night with his uncle and a family friend of theirs. We used to go raccoon hunting, which we usually did at night, using a scent hound bred for that type of thing. It was common in the southern United States, and that's where this took place, in a remote rural area in the southeastern US in the late 1970s, early 1980s. It should be noted that a good, trained coonhound never leaves a raccoon at tracks and corners up a tree. My uncle had 2 fully trained, reliable coonhounds with an excellent hunting record. On this particular night, the 3 men each had a light source. One had a carbide lamp, another had a brand new flashlight with brand new batteries, and another had a lantern. The location they chose to hunt in was an area my uncle had been many times. It was truly a remote area, far removed from civilization, and was one of the most beautiful wilderness areas one had ever seen. It was located near a national park. That night they drove a little farther out than they usually did and let the dogs out. It didn't take long for the dogs to track down a coon. The men followed the dogs and had to walk quite a bit off the regular path this time. They ended up well outside the usual area. It was an area my uncle was not familiar with. They found the dogs at a very large tree situated on a cliff. There were no other trees around it, and they could hear the sound of water flowing in a creek beneath the cliff. The strange thing about the tree was this stone that was sitting beneath it. My dad said the stone resembled a gravestone, the way it was positioned upright, just below the tree, and the way it looked. It looked almost as if it had been placed there. As soon as the hunting party reached the tree where the dogs were, the dogs suddenly went silent and walked away from the area, in the direction from which the group had just come. My uncle noted that the dogs' behavior was uncharacteristic of them because they had never just walked off like that when there was a coon in a tree. My dad thought it was odd as well. He said he had never seen them act that way. It was as if something had spooked them. Baffled by the dog's behavior, still they decided to look to see if there was a coon there. My dad leaned against the stone and shone his light up into the tree. There was no coon to be found, which again was highly unusual. If there wasn't a raccoon, what were they chasing? As soon as my dad leaned against the tree and shone the light into it, their friend's carbide lamp suddenly went out. My dad said that as soon as their friend uttered the words, "My light went out," the other two lights simultaneously went out as well. Alone in the woods and completely in the dark, a feeling of uneasiness settled over the men. My uncle, who was a logical-minded man, calmly stated, "There's probably a reasonable explanation for what has just happened. We need to all remain calm. Let's just step away from here and make our way back to the Jeep." So they headed back the way they came. About a half mile to a mile on their way back, their lights all came back on, as if nothing had happened. They found the dogs a little farther down the way, nearer to the Jeep. My dad never went back there to hunt again. What is interesting to note is this particular area is near a well-known area of the park where lots of people through the years drowned in the river there. It is purported to be a haunted spot. There have been ghost sightings and all kinds of strange occurrences in that area. It's possible they wandered into the park, near that very spot where some unfortunate soul drowned. Thanks for tuning in. Watch another video if you dare.